When I show people the Find X3 Pro, the reaction is a little bit like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. Just like me then. But there's also more than a passing resemblance between this and this, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, particularly in this color. And actually, if I bring it up to the camera, it is very similar. They've mirrored the camera module and then kind of melted the edges around it, or that's what it kind of looks like. But in a world of big, bulky phones with sticky outy camera bumps, there's something refined and a little bit grown up about the Find X3 Pro. And I think next to the S21 Ultra, it's much nicer to hold. It's thinner, it's narrower, it's a good deal lighter, and it's just more comfortable to carry around in your pocket. Although despite Oppo's Awaken the Color marketing campaign for this, I can't help it feels just a little bit, well, dull. I'll tell you what though, this actually kind of makes me miss last year's phone. I think I've got it. Yes, I do. There it is. It's almost like I prepared for this video. This guy, this is the Oppo Find X2 Pro from last year in this very snazzy orange vegan leather design. And love it or hate it, it does kind of stand out. But what do you reckon between these two? Which one do you think looks better? Let me know in the comments. So I've really enjoyed using this for the past couple of weeks. I've fully switched to it as my main phone, and there's a whole lot to like here. But spoiler alert, after this review, I'm probably going to take my SIM out and put it back in the S21 Ultra. Or actually, more likely the OnePlus 9 Pro, but that's a different video. That's not to say that this is a bad phone at all. In fact, it's a really, really good phone. But I think for the price and what you're getting, it just doesn't quite keep up with some of its rivals. And well, hopefully by the end of the review, you'll either agree, or if you indeed disagree and think I'm a complete idiot, let me know in the comments as well. And if you do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. So this will set you back a cool £1,099. I would give you the dollar price, but sadly it's not coming to the US at this point. And that's the exact same price as the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and just £50 less than the S21 Ultra. Although, once you factor in the X3 Pro comes with 256 gigs of storage as standard, which is great, it's actually £100 cheaper than the equivalent Samsung. But that's still an awful lot of money for a brand that doesn't really have a whole lot of brand recognition, here in the UK at least. Of course, Oppo is huge in China and Asia, but in the UK you've probably more likely heard of OnePlus than Oppo. Still, the X3 Pro does a lot really well, and you're getting flagship specs, a beautiful 120Hz Quad HD Plus 10-bit screen, a premium, albeit divisive design, fantastic battery life, and also one of the best cameras on any phone. Although I am almost ashamed to admit it, the standout for me is this 3-megapixel microscope lens, which I've genuinely had a lot of fun with. Yes, it's a little bit gimmicky, and it can also be really awkward to use sometimes as the focus is so narrow as your hand's shaking and you're trying to keep your subject in focus. Plus, you'll probably end up forgetting about it after you've, well, shoved your camera into every surface around your house. But it is genuinely unique, and it's kind of fun to relive your Honey, I Shrunk the Kid fantasies. So far so good then, but if we dive a little bit deeper into this, for that £1,100 price tag, we are missing a couple of features that you would expect. Firstly, it's using older Gorilla Glass 5 rather than the latest Victus, which protects its rivals. We're also not getting 8K video, which is a bit odd because the Snapdragon 888 chip does support it, plus the selfie video around the front tops out at 1080p. They've also downgraded the zoom from last year's Find X2 Pro. The 5x optical is now a 2x optical, although to be fair, most people prefer closer range zoom anyway, so that is a sensible choice. But for this kind of money and looking at what Samsung and Huawei are doing, why not both? Also, this isn't actually something I expected, but it's slower than every other Snapdragon 888 phone I've tested. It's not a night and day difference, but in benchmarks and even some real-world app launching tests, it just falls behind a little bit. And finally, Oppo says that they'll only support this with Android and security updates for 2 years, which isn't a lot when most big brands now are offering at least 3. But it's not all bad news, and actually one of the surprising highlights for me of this is the battery life. In fact, I've just finished filming a big battery rundown test, which includes a couple of phones I can't show you just yet, hence the blur, but despite having a smaller 4500 mAh battery versus the 5000 mAh cell on the Samsung, it came out they were neck and neck. And in my real world experience, by 11 PM I still have about 35% of my battery left, and of course with the 65-watt SuperVOOC 2 charging, 0 to 100 takes just 30 minutes. Plus, we're also getting reasonably fast 15-watt wireless charging, which we didn't get on last year's Find X2 Pro. This 6.7-inch screen is also one of the highlights of this phone. In fact, it's probably one of the best screens I've ever used on a phone. It has an ever so slight curve, just enough to look good, but without any of the normal curvy accidental touching issues. It's also bright, peaking at 1300 nits with HDR. It's an LTPO panel, which means we get an adaptive refresh rate that can dynamically adjust between 5 and 120 Hz, depending on what's on the screen. And that goes a long way to help improve battery life. But the real geeky stuff is the 10-bit support. So the camera, the software, and the screen all support the wider color gamut and the 1 billion colors you get with a 10-bit display. So you can snap a photo in 10-bit, it will save the file in a very awkward to use HEIF file format, and then you can view it back on the screen with the full 1 billion colors compared to the usual 16 million you get with an 8-bit screen. So it's technically very impressive, and of course, looking at videos and photos or even watching movies on this, it looks incredible. Although I don't think this feature alone would be enough to convince me to upgrade. As I say, that HEIF file format is incredibly hard to work with. Don't expect to share or edit them as easily as a regular old JPEG, and to be honest, I'm hard pressed to notice any difference that I can see at least between an 8-bit and a 10-bit photo that I've taken on the phone. Although that doesn't take away from the fact that the screen is just stunning to look at, 10-bit or otherwise. And particularly when you put it in Quad HD resolution with that 120Hz refresh mode, and paired with the pretty slick ColorOS 11.2 software, which is on top of Android 11, the Oppo is just lovely to use. And I think overall their software has come a long way in the last few years. Although it's still not quite as lightweight or slick as, say, OnePlus's Oxygen OS, but it's not far behind. Okay, let's talk about this camera, because while this microscope lens you can see here with the ring light around it is fun, what's actually more useful is the fact that both the main and the ultra-wide lens use the exact same 50 megapixel camera, the exact same sensor, albeit with a slightly different aperture. But the result is where you'd normally accept that ultra-wide shots don't look quite as good as ones taken with the main camera, here they look just as good as each other. Detail, colors, white balance. So switching lenses while you're filming feels more seamless, or if you're just taking an ultra-wide photo because you want the wider field of view, you're not sacrificing quality, which I think is a really smart move, and I'd love to see this set up on more phones. However, the telephoto lens feels like a bit of an afterthought. We're getting a 2x optical zoom with 5x hybrid, so it does struggle at long distance. Although up close it fares better, but I still had a few issues with some photos lacking in detail. So overall quality is really good, and in my S21 Ultra camera comparison, it traded blows, although ultimately I still prefer the Samsung for its better zoom and its video options. Plus the Oppo's colors were sometimes a little bit off. Some photos looked far too saturated, and also in low light, the white balance in a couple of shots completely missed the mark, but most of the time I was pretty happy. And finally around the front we get a 32 megapixel selfie camera. Here, photos can look a little bit flat and lacking in detail sometimes, and highlights often look overexposed and a bit blown out, so there's definitely room for improvement, but on the whole I still think it takes nice selfies. So with all that said, I do think the Find X3 Pro is a great phone, I really do, but I don't know how many people would pick this over, say, the S21 Ultra. In fact, let me know in the comments which one you would go for, although bear in mind this is about £50 cheaper. And actually not only that, because also at this price point, as I say, the exact same as the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I'm also expecting the upcoming OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro to undercut this and offer similar, if not slightly better features. So once again, I'm a bit afraid that the X3 Pro might just get forgotten about. However, with the microscopic camera, the uncompromised ultra-wide lens, great battery life, stunning screen, and a design that at least sparks some debate, you definitely won't be disappointed if you buy this. And I think it's great to see some genuine competition to Samsung's hold on the high-end Android market. But I think to be really competitive, Oppo just needs to be more aggressive with the price. But what do you reckon? Would you be tempted to buy one of these? And if not, well, why not? Let me know in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, as I say, give me a thumbs up and tap that subscribe button and the notification bell, all those annoying things. And I'll see you guys next time right here on the Tech Chat. Thanks for watching.